Going for two, kickers are extra, I give them the boot. Ooh, going for two, sit back, relax while I grab me a brew. Ooh, now I'm reclining while putting my time and I'm ready to go. My spine is aligning and much my lineups, my bank account grow. I am so rich, but knowledge is all that I'm leaving it with. Ooh, listen to this, multiple options, how far can I get? Ooh, DFS Dynasty redraft tonight, I'm not finishing last. I'm finishing past any and all, I am looking to last. What else? This spot is popping and I am so locked in and only opening the door when it is opportunity knocking. And all of these spots keep on talking and talking. So what are we talking? What kind of alignment? And running it deep, even players forgotten or came from the bottom or hitting that top end. And this spot is popping, yeah, this spot is popping. And woo! This is the armchair, yeah. Put up your arms, yeah. Sound the alarm, yeah, yeah, yeah. Woo!
What is going on, guys, and welcome to episode 284 of the Armchair Fantasy Show. I'm your host, of course, Jeff Lambert. Follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77. And Friday night on Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch, syndicated on all major podcast networks. If you are on Twitter, we cannot see your comments in the chat roll, so please go find us on YouTube at youtube.com/going-for-2live so we can interact with you. You can ask questions during the show and all that good stuff. So go find us, hit the subscribe button as well so you can help us out. All right, so I'm not here with Gerson tonight. Gerson, unfortunately, well, I guess unfortunate for us, fortunately for him, he's in Vegas right now. Probably about 13 or 14 beers in, I'm sure. So he could not make the show tonight, but we do have a returning person that's been here before a couple of times. Jared Good, a.k.a. the Yeti Express. What's up, Jared?
Not a whole lot, guys, man. Really happy to be here. Happy you called me, man.
Good stuff, man. And of course, Tim, you're always here every night, man. How you been?
Yeah, man. I'm doing it. I'm doing it for Gerson tonight. I got the Modelo's ready to go. I heard my boys killing it at the blackjack table. So win all that money, G.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Looks like we got some Yeti fans already in here today. Oh, shit. We got Mr. Yeti himself tonight. Yeah. That is correct. All right, let's go ahead and get into the rewind.
The weekly rewind. Rewind.
All right, as usual, now we're doing these one good, one bad for our rewind. Keep them short and sweet. Tim, I'll go ahead and go to you first here. Give me your good and bad.
Yeah, we've been kind of bad on our locks of the week. So last week, my lock of the week, CeeDee Lamb, turned out good for me. So I was happy to see that. What did not turn out very well for me is I went with David Njoku over TJ Hawkinson. And last week, if you didn't have Hawkinson, you didn't win any money. So shout out to everybody who played 3 or 4 Lions in cash.
Yeah, that was definitely the way to go there. I know you weren't on the show last week, Jared, but of course you had your good and bad plays last week as well. What was your good and bad?
Yeah, my really good was Josh Jacobs was a guy that, like, you know, the more and more I looked at it, I'm like, he could be a pretty good value. You know, I'm a guy that plays 150 lines, so I'm going to have a little bit of everybody. But that was one of those guys that, like, after doing some of my crunches, I kind of like manually adjusted him up a couple percentage points just because he kept popping for me. And he balled out. I think he had like 37.5 or something like that. Just crazy game for Josh Jacobs. But at 5,500, I think he was. I mean, that's sensational.
Really good.
I don't know. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you saw it, but if it wasn't for Josh Jacobs, a full Detroit Seattle onslaught would have won. But in the end, Josh Jacobs pulled the guy ahead for first place. So it was a great call.
And my bad was Jonathan Taylor. I know some of you guys are in our group chat. I talked about him all week long. I loved him because I hate Tennessee and everything about them. I've never, not that I've ever been there, but I think their football team's really, really bad. And it just didn't pan out, you know. And then he ended the game having turf toe, which was great for me on my dynasty team.
Good stuff. All right, my good, and Tim mentioned about not being on a cash without Hawkinson. I actually cashed my cash lineup without Hawkinson because I played a few pivots that nobody had, like Rashad Penny. I played Rashad Penny over Khalil Herbert, who was the chalk. He balled out, of course, at 4,900. I had a few of the guys, like you mentioned, Lamb. I had Lamb in my cash lineup. I had Sutton in my cash lineup. I had Marquise Brown in my cash lineup. All low-owned guys that went off that helped my cash lineup tremendously. Unfortunately, the one guy that I missed in my cash lineup was Marcus Mariota, and he's my bad. He was the one guy on my whole roster that had the little snowflake next to it. The rest of them were all pretty much fire across the board. I would have really cashed really nicely if Mariota would have done anything whatsoever. So he was definitely my bad. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the quarterbacks.
Let's talk quarterbacks.
And we don't usually do the lock of the week for quarterbacks, but tonight we do have one.
Lock it in.
And it is mine, Mr. Tom Brady at $6,000. That one jumped out at me. He, in his career, is 10-0 versus Atlanta. He averages 28 points per game versus Atlanta in his career. He averaged 32 points per game as a buck against them. I mean, I don't know how they put him at only 6,000. He's got all his weapons back. Mike Evans is going to be back, of course. Godwin is there. Leonard Fournette is there. I think even I saw Russell Gage is ready to go. So his full complement of weapons are there. Minus Cameron Brate, which, I don't know if he's really a weapon or not, but he's the only one that's out of this lineup right now. So it's $6,000. Brady will be in a ton of my lineups, a ton of stacks, and I'll probably even have him in my cash line at that price as well. So Tom Brady is my lock of the week. Tim, we'll go to you here for the top tier elite guys. Who you want to talk about there?
Yeah, I love the Brady call. I told you he was one of the first things that jumped out to me as well. The other one that jumps out to me this week is Josh Allen. And what really jumps out about Josh Allen is it doesn't seem like anybody wants to play him. Last week, everybody wanted to play Josh Allen. He was a chalk. Like, you either paid down or you paid up for Josh Allen. And then this week, people are like, oh, it's going to be a blowout. They're just going to run the ball. No. Josh Allen is going to absolutely blow out the Steelers here. I think he could have 3-4 touchdowns before they start running the ball. So usually you saw him do it against Tennessee. They will not take their foot off the gas. And if you're going to tell me he's going to come in at lower ownership, man, I want all of that. So spoiler alert for later, I'm on Josh Allen this week.
Good stuff. Yeah, it's going to be sort of like a post-hype kind of thing with that Buffalo team. Other than Josh Allen last week, if you played a Buffalo Bill, you probably got burned. But I think this week, it's going to be wheels up for the whole Buffalo offense. So I agree. Yeah. Josh Allen's definitely a great play. All right, Jerry, what you got for your elite guy?
Before I get to my elite guy, I just wanted to say that we make this giant show sheet with 1 million plays and 1 million positions and 1 million different values. We all had Tom Brady as a mid-range. He's in a really, really good spot. I think Tom Brady, in my part of the show sheet, I put angry Tom Brady. He's pissed off. He's going through divorce. That's the kind of stuff where you see Tom Brady just like come out and ball out. He's got his receivers back. I really love Tom Brady this week. But my top play for quarterbacks was Justin Herbert. I think people are kind of sleeping on Herbert a little bit just because he's been banged up. He's been injured, but he's been playing through it. And he's still throwing the ball a ton. Like, he's averaging damn near 40 pass attempts a game. Cleveland's defense is not very good. I think that at 7,100, you can definitely get his connecting pieces at a pretty cheap price. And we'll talk about that later. But Herbert's just got the volume, and volume is king in DFS.
Yeah, I agree. Has anybody heard? I haven't checked on the D line for the Browns. I know they had a bunch of injuries last week. Do we know if any of the guys are going to be back this week? While y'all look that up, I'll go ahead and talk about my other elite guy. The last elite one I have is Jalen Hurts. I mean, you can pretty much put him in this category every week. He's got the legs, he's got the arm now, he's got the weapons. He's performing at a very high level. He's going to Arizona, so the travel might be a little bit tough. But at 8.2, I think he's 8.2, or is he 8.1? Is he the same price as
He's 100 cheaper.
Yeah, he's 81.
He's 8,100. So yeah, I mean, Hurts is it. I don't got to talk about him. We've seen how good he is. If you can fit him into your lineup, then there are some ways to pay down and on this slate so you can get up to Hurts. So Hurts at Arizona. We know Arizona can put up points as well. So hopefully, we haven't seen it much this year where the Eagles have to score in the second half. Hopefully this week they got to score in the second half and we can put up some monster numbers for Jalen Hurts. So at 8.1, he's definitely one of my elite guys.
As far as that D line's looking for the Browns, a lot of them still DNPing so far. A lot of that stuff doesn't mean a whole lot until Friday. So I really look at Clowney both
limited. Yeah, look out for the Sunday injury report.
Definitely. Which, if I'm not mistaken, Yeti, you're going to be on that as well, filling in for Gerson on Sunday as well, right?
I got a busy week for G to have fun, man. He might have to owe me a drink next time he comes to town.
Yes, sir.
definitely. All right, so normally we go to the mid-tier next, but literally the only guy we all have in our mid-tier is Tom Brady. We already talked about Tom Brady. So let's go ahead and move down into the value tier here, Tim, and give me one of your value quarterbacks.
I do. When I first looked at the slate, I told you there weren't very many quarterbacks that I liked. But if I am going to pay down a little bit from Tom Brady, it's going to be for Trevor Lawrence. He had a bad week last week playing against Philadelphia, but I feel like you throw out games against Philadelphia. You know what I mean? They're just a good defense. They kind of make everybody look bad. Oh, and he also played in a storm, right? This week, he gets to play at home. He gets the Houston Texans, who are not good at stopping anything. I think that Jacksonville is going to be able to dictate this game, right? They're going to be able to do whatever they want. He's going to be able to move the ball up and down the field. And I think that it's going to be a huge bounce back game for Trevor Lawrence. Like, if it wasn't for Brady, I would say he is the lock in cash, right? But Brady's only 400 more, and I think most people are going to find that $400. But if it wasn't for Brady, man, he jumped off the page to me too.
Yep, absolutely. I was just going to say the same thing you just said. If it wasn't for Brady, he'd be my cash quarterback as well at 5,600.
Yep.
Great matchup, the whole nine. Yeti, who do you got in your value tier here?
Well, I just wanted to mention before I talked about my guy, we all had Trevor Lawrence. We kind of all agreed there. A lot of you guys don't get to see this sheet that we talk about, but we all really like Lawrence. He makes a lot of sense. The volumes there. He was my cash game article quarterback that I wrote up at 5:30 this morning. Stayed up late to do that, but if you're not looking at the cash game article, make sure you do. I write it. It's a lot of fun. Zach Wilson for me this week, and it sounds kind of gross, but at 5,300, he's cheap. He's real cheap. I believe he caught a 2-point conversion, or was it a touchdown last week? This dude is in an offense being super, super young with a lot of super, super young talent too. You can beat Miami through the air. We've seen that multiple times the first 4 weeks. I'm not probably going there a whole lot, but I do really like Zach Wilson and the New York Jets.
Yeah, that's a really good pivot. And the other two guys I had in my value tier are kind of pivots too. Like I like T-Law, like Tim mentioned. The other two guys I have are strictly based on who they're playing. Teddy Bridgewater is going up against the Jets defense, which is 29th ranked DVOA. And Andy Dalton is playing the Seattle Seahawks, which right now, if you pretty much play anybody against the Seahawks, and you're probably going to put some points up because their defense is just atrocious. He's 5.2, and the Seahawks are 32nd DVOA versus the pass. So if you want to pivot off some, off of Trevor Lawrence and go really cheap, you can go with the 5.4, or the 5.2 for Dalton or Teddy B. All right, let's move into the tight ends.
Did somebody say tight ends?
All right, tight ends. We only have the only one of us has a elite tier tight end, and surprise, surprise, it has to be me. So I have George Kittle here at my elite tier tight end at 5.2. And I had this argument, I think, on Twitter or Facebook, one of the two, and someone was saying that Kittle's been blocking a lot, and he's been back there protecting the quarterback a lot, and it's actually not true. Kittle's running a route on 87% of his snaps, which is actually a career high. So I think there has to be some kind of regression to the mean here, where I think Jimmy G start looking his way. If he's running routes, eventually he's going to get targeted, and eventually he's going to break a big one. I think against Carolina, this is definitely a good spot for him to do that. So George Kittle at 5.2 is expensive, and we typically don't pay up for tight end on this show. But if you're going to pay for tight end, he's the one I would pay up to get. So at 5.2, it's a pretty good price too. You're not paying the 6,000, 7,000 that you would for Andrews or a Kelsey. So I like Kittle this week.
Yeah, I feel like the NFL kind of said, "Oh, y'all like to pay down for tight ends, right? We're just not going to put any high-priced tight ends on the slate, absolutely at all. You have no fucking choice but to pay down for tight end."
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I want to talk about a guy that is almost top tier, right? Because he broke the slate last, and that's TJ Hawkinson, right? Like the Hawking goat, or as Jared calls him, TJ Hockey Sticks. So, I think this is dependent on whether or not the sun god, Amon-Ra St. Brown, plays. If he doesn't play, I think we're going to see a similar game plan to last week, where it's just get the ball to Hawkinson on third downs and in the red zone as much as possible, at which case he's underpriced still at $4,900, right? So I love him this week, especially if he doesn't go. If he does go, I think they're going to be a little bit more split. I still think he's a good play, but I don't think you have to go back to him, right? I think there are other plays in this range.
Yeah, one thing I will say, just to be devil's advocate, and I've made this mistake already this year once, is Jared Goff is not as good on the road as he is at home, and he is on the road this week, so I'd be a little leery about playing any of the passing options there. I made that mistake, I think, week 2. I played Jared Goff. Maybe it might have been week 3, whatever road game he had, and he was not very good. So that's the only thing I'd be a little bit leery of. But Hawkinson, we saw last week at what he's capable of.
He just like forces him the ball. No, I told you, I almost put this. Maybe I should have saved this for defense, but I almost put that I love the Patriots defense this week because I agree. He's outdoors, and Bill Belichick has always seemed to have his number. So I think that a sneaky option this week would be to go with Patriots defense and fade all Lions.
Just a quick note on Hawkinson before we move on to the next one. I believe heading into this offseason, he had 0 targets inside the 10. So I think that's what Tim means by it's really, really important whether or not Amon St. Brown is ruled out or not, because Hawkinson does his damage from outside the red zone, which is not very typical for a tight end.
Right. That's exactly right. And just the note that I had on him is the Patriots right now are giving up the 7th most points to tight ends at 16.4 a game. So they do give up points to tight ends, and if Amon-Ra St. Brown is out, Hawkinson is definitely a great play. All right, let's go to you, Jared. What do you got for your mid-tier?
Well, I seem to list this guy every single week in the cash game article that I write, but it's Dallas Goddard. This dude's just super consistent, super solid in a great offense, which I don't know why it seems like every single week that whoever the Eagles play are terrible against tight ends. I think Arizona's dead last. So like every time I fall on his name, I'm like, oh yeah, he's 4,700, but he's going to get you 12 to 15 points and you pretty much write it off into the sunset. Like it's almost a guarantee. Like just a super, super consistent guy and a great offense is really all I have on Goddard.
Yeah. And I believe, I forgot what I was going to say now, so we'll just move on. I was going to say
talk about the last guy you got there.
For me or for you? Oh, I guess you have Goddard as well. Okay, so yeah, I got Higbee. Obviously, Higbee's been the number 2 option in that offense behind Cooper Kupp, and I don't know if there's a number 3 option right now because it seems to be Cooper Kupp or Higbee. But at 4.3 versus Dallas, I do think that's a pretty good game there. The Rams haven't looked great, obviously. I mean, they gave up 7 sacks last week. They gave up 7 sacks, in week 1. Their offensive line is terrible. So if your O-line is terrible, you're getting the ball out quick. You're getting the ball to Higbee underneath there. So I think there's going to be a lot of checkdowns at 4.3. I think Higbee's definitely in play this week.
So I want to make a comment, and you guys know in general, I am not a fan of playing 2 tight ends, but I think this week it's so hard to find value, and a couple of these tight ends are in such good spots that this might be a week where I could see somebody playing 2 tight ends and actually have it winning. You know what I mean? Because there is not, we'll talk about a guy later in the show, but I don't think there's a lot of good value this week. And so I think you could get a little sneaky playing, Goddard and Higbee, because I think that they're both in excellent matchups and have enough upside to win a tournament. So,
since I'm Gerson this week, I'm going to add a guy, and it's Zach Ertz.
Right.
I just realized none of us had him listed. Zach Ertz, look, this Arizona team is really kind of hard to predict. Well, normally they're pretty easy to predict because they just throw the ball to Hollywood Brown. But as far as a mid-range tight end, the Eagles kind of have like a funnel inside defense. Like you can't really beat them on the outside with Slay. So you're going to see Slay on Hollywood Brown, and you're asking either Greg Dortch, Rondelle Moore, a combination of Connor and Benjamin. And I expect them to be down by a lot of points in this game. I just feel like the middle could be open for Zach Ertz.
I like it. And you did have, I want to just mention real quick because I do like him as well, Gerald Everett at 4.2. I believe Keenan Allen's officially ruled out now, so I think
he has been,
that helps Everett as well. He's been really good. He's been, one of those guys that have been climbing into that sort of mid-tier. He started off in the value. He's moved into the mid-tier, and he's been really great. Let's move down into the value tier, Tim. What do you got for your value tight end?
Yeah, I'm going back to the well a little bit on David Njoku. I'll have some exposure this week. I obviously played him last week. His volume is actually really good. Like last week, he had that terrible fumble. But outside of that, for most of the game, I mean, he has 6-7 targets. So I think he's consistently a good value. Also has a good matchup this week. And he'll, be a pivot off some of the other guys we talked about.
I like it. Yeah, Njoku, he did kind of let us down a little bit last week after his big game, but I do think he's still a good part of that offense. And Jared, you have the guy right now that probably has the best tight end nickname out there with Tyler Gronklin, the way he's been playing this year.
Yeah.
At 3.7. Talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, it's just another guy that's getting targeted in an offense that I actually really like. Like, there's a lot of people that look at me talking about the Jets up and down the show sheet right now, like, this guy crazy? Like, he comes on the sheet as a guest talking about the Jets like there's somebody, like, hey, Conklin's getting targets. He's getting red zone targets. He's only got one touchdown, but, like, I mean, look at the game log: 7, 9, 8, 5. Like, for 3,700, I mean, he's really only got to catch maybe 2 or 3 of those balls and score a touchdown, and he's there. He was mentioned in the chat as well on Facebook. He's just a guy that fits if you're willing to pay down a little bit at that position.
I like it. So the guy I had was originally going to be my sit call, and then until I logged into Roto Grinders and checked the ownership percentage, and this guy is predicted right now to be the second highest owned tight end on the slate, which surprised the hell out of me. And that's Cade Otton for the Bucks. Obviously, Cameron Brate is ruled out. Cade Otton, obviously, the value to him is he's 2.5. He's super, super cheap. I will say that, as an owner of Cade Otton in my dynasty leagues, I've been paying attention to this guy pretty closely. In the preseason, Tom Brady loved this guy. I think there was a one of those inter scrimmage games. It wasn't a preseason game, but they were playing against somebody else as one of those scrimmage games. And Cade Otton had 3 touchdowns in that game. All from Tom Brady. So Tom Brady looks his way in the red zone at 2.5. He don't have to do much. He's been looking pretty good so far. That I've been watching him. He's got a few targets here and there. He's doing a lot of great blocking, so he's on the field quite a bit. So 2.5 is someone that I'm really looking at with the Atlanta defense giving up the 3rd most yards and the 4th most receptions to tight ends. So Cade Otton is definitely on my list. All right, let's move to the running backs.
It's time for running backs. Running backs. Lock it in.
I think this may be the first time that we have a lock it in from each position that we don't have to go over each other here. So, Tim, you got the lock it in on the running backs here. Go ahead.
I do. I told you when I first looked at this slate, there were 2 things that jumped out to me. One of them was how is Tom Brady 6K? And the other one is I got to play Nick Chubb this week. I feel like I'm on an island here. We talked about it in the pre-show, ownership between 5 and 10%, depending on what site you go to. And I think he's an absolute smash play this week. Nick Chubb averaging 5.7 yards a carry, and the Los Angeles Chargers giving up 6.1 yards a carry. So one thing I've talked about, and for those of you in the DFS Roundtable Facebook group, I always do an NFL thread every week. I post a lot of charts that I get off Twitter, and one of them is the rushing matchups chart I get from Hayden Winks on Underdog. And it goes a team's offensive EPA for rushing versus a defensive against the rush. And all the way up in the top right-hand corner is the Cleveland Browns. It is an absolute eruption spot, and nobody seems to be playing Nick Chubb this week. So I am going to have him everywhere, going to be way overweight in tournaments. Lock it in for Nick Chubb this week.
I like it. And we looked before the show to see what his ownership was on Roto Grinders. They got him at 4% ownership. So if you can get Nick Chubb 4% ownership and he goes off, you're in good shape.
I got Chubb for Chubb.
Got Chubb for Chubb. Where's Gerson at? That's his favorite saying. All right, Yeti, give me one of your elite running backs here.
So I actually listed nobody, but I really like Austin Eckler. I talked about Herbert earlier. We kind of talk on the show and in the Facebook group about having a Konami code quarterback or like a dual threat. There's Konami code running backs, which is kind of to think about. And Austin Eckler is one of them. Like, he is a guy that can catch the ball. He can run the ball. I really like the Chargers as a lower owned stack this week, especially with Keenan Allen out. A lot of people would just jump off them because they're like, oh, well, Keenan Allen's Mr. Consistency. I'm looking at you, Jeff Lambert, who plays him every week. But yeah, no, Austin Eckler, very good running back. Had a couple quiet weeks. I think his ownership will be down. I should have looked at ownership right before I got on this. I looked at it last night, but I don't remember the thing that I read at 5:30 in the morning. But Austin Eckler, to me, kind of 7,800. If I'm going to pay up somewhere, it's either going to be him or Chubb.
Austin Eckler right now is coming in at 5% on RotoGrinders, so pretty low owned. So that's a good call. So my elite guy, so I'll leave the one guy there for you, Tim. But I had some notes on this one, so I'll talk about Alvin Kamara, which we hope he'll be back. We haven't got full confirmation that he'll be back against Seattle. 6.6. We've mentioned how bad the Seattle Seahawks defense is. They give the fourth most points to running backs. Michael Thomas already ruled out, so there'll be more targets to go around. Landry's questionable. I think Landry plays, but if for some reason he does miss it, even better for Kamara. At 6.6, it's a little expensive, figuring that he's been out for a week or so, and we're not sure what we're going to see with his rib injury. But I do think at 6.6, he's still playable in tournaments. So I like Kamara this week. All right, Tim, talk about Mr. Uncle Lenny.
Yeah, this is a go-to. We love Brady, right? We talk about he's pretty much a lock this week, but I think a lot of people are going to go on Brady, and I think you can also play Leonard Fournette this week. He has been consistently used in this offense. He makes a great play at under 7K, only 6,900. Atlanta is just getting absolutely torched. We talked about them, one of the worst defenses in the league across the board. I think this is a no-brainer, right? They are let me look at the spread real quick. They are currently 10-point favorites over the Atlanta Falcons, right? So just lock it in. He's going to be Uncle Lenny time in the second half.
Good stuff. Yeah, I got Fournette on my list as well. Let's move down into the mid-tier. Jared, what do you got for your mid-tier guys?
Well, I got about 20 of them, but I'll pick somebody that I want to talk about. The one guy I really want to talk about, and this is kind of pivot off of what Tim said, is Kareem Hunt. He falls in that weird range where like everybody sees all these other mid-range plays. And I'm saying this as a GPP player, you know, a guy that plays 150 lines. Like I want a sprinkle of Hunt. I'm not going to have a ton of them. But I think at that price point, I think he's going to be under 1% owned because there's so many guys in that range. And when we look at it, like Hunt is still getting the volume. He's getting, 10 to 15 carries a week. He hasn't been as involved in the passing game there. And that might just be because they've been playing pretty close games, if I remember off the top of my head. But like I feel like he's just in that weird spot where nobody's going to play him, but he still only needs to score one touchdown in the red. Like he's been scoring, 12 to 15 points a week as it is at 6K. And if he scores a touchdown, now you're at 22. It starts climbing up the ladder when you have a lot of these guys that are being heavily owned in this range. So that was one guy that I said it last week, and it wasn't like anything crazy, but I'm sticking with it because I think that he's in a really, really good ownership pivot spot.
Yeah, I just checked his ownership on RotoGrinders, and he's at 1.2%. So
yeah,
can't get much lower than 1% owned. So I like that call. All right, Tim, what do you got for your mid-tier?
Yeah, I'm going to shout out Damian Porter in the chat. James Robinson. This is a guy that is currently in my cash lineup. I absolutely loved him this week against the Houston Texans. They are obviously one of the worst teams in the league against the run. I think 29th DVOA. And they're actually fairly decent against the pass, 16th. So a lot of teams we've seen funnel against the Houston Texans. We saw what Austin Eckler did against them last week, right? Basically broke the slate. James Robinson, though, when the Jaguars have been able to establish the run, right, keep the game close, run the ball, it's been James Robinson, right? So I think he sees 18 to 20 touches in this game at 6,300. He's almost a lock. There's one other guy I want to talk about if y'all don't talk about that I think could be a pivot, but for right now, he's in my cash lineup.
All right, yeah, I'll talk about the one guy I got some good notes on here is Ramondre Stevenson at 5.5. The Lions, of course, we talked about it, give up the second most points to running backs. Their defense is not good at 5.5. And Stevenson, surprisingly, to a lot of us, he's the passing down back in this offense as well. So he's getting those very valuable targets out of the backfield. You're going to have a rookie quarterback making his first start. There will be some checkdowns going to Stevenson. I think Bill Belichick will have a very conservative game plan, screens, a lot of running. So I think Stevenson's going to have a big role against that Lions defense. And we know the Lions can put up points, so they're going to have to be passing the ball, I assume, to keep up. So I think Stevenson is the guy who benefits from that over Damian Harris. So at 5.5, I like Stevenson a lot.
I had a quick note on Stevenson, and it was basically this: Detroit's defense is absolutely terrible, but so is the Patriots offense. So you got to pick a guy somewhere. And Stevenson just kind of fits that mold.
I like it. Let's go back around one more time. We still got a bunch of guys here in the mid tier. So I'll go back to you, Jared. Give me another one of your mid guys.
Yeah. Talk about your must play, Jared. I'm waiting for it. Tell me why I got to play Breece Hall this week.
It's Breece Hall. Breece Hall is entering an offense that is improving with young guys, like I said earlier on in the show. But not only that, Breece Hall had 17 carries last week, and we've also seen him get 11 targets in a week. I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, if Breece Hall is going to take this front run RB1 role like I think he is, like a 70-30 split share with Michael Carter, man, I just don't see how we don't be playing Breece Hall. We talked about ways to beat Miami. They're pretty good against the run, and we've kind of acknowledged that, but they're terrible against the pass. And I feel like, like I just said, this Konami code running back, which might be kind of like a new thing, but I also think that he fits that mold. He just isn't the sole guy, so we don't really notice it yet. But I really think he's going to get elevated this week after last week's showing. And at 5.4, I mean, he makes a pretty good value in my book anyways.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right, Tim, give me one of your other mid-tier guys.
Yeah, this was kind of my pivot that I mentioned a minute ago. Right now, David Montgomery is limited. If he is ruled out, I'm going to go back to the well on Khalil Herbert. You guys know I love to play a guy the week after he's chalk. And with him, with the uncertainty of whether or not Montgomery's going to play, I don't think he'll be as highly owned as he was last week when he was the stone cold chalk. So he's 5,900 this week, only 200 up from where he was last week. And I think he makes an interesting pivot. And hopefully maybe some people got scared off last week. And Yeti, he's playing your Vikings this week, which are bottom 10 in terms of yards per carry given up to running backs.
I like it. So I had two more guys on my list in the mid-tier, and I'll talk about the one guy that's going to be a little bit lower owned, a little bit more expensive, and that's Devin Singletary. He was mentioned in the chat. Brian mentioned him as being his 4% lock of the week. At 6.1 versus the Steelers. We mentioned that this game could potentially be a blowout. It'll be Singletary getting those carries late in the fourth quarter, and really he's been the one getting most of the work. We kind of thought this was going to be like a three-headed monster with James Cook and Zach Moss and Singletary, but as far as running backs go, he's getting the most of the work. Both in the passing game and the running game at 6.1. His ownership will be pretty low compared to some of the guys we already talked about. So I do like Singletary this week against Pittsburgh. I'm just going to mention real quick the other guys we had on our list here in the mid-tier. I also had Jeff Wilson Jr., 5.5. Obviously, if you're the lead back in the Niners, offense there at the run-first offense at 5.5, he's going to be valuable. You had is that Jamal? That's Jamal Williams, 6.5, right?
Yep.
So Jamal Williams, Miles Sanders also there at 6.5. And then we already mentioned J-Rob and Stevenson. So that's all the guys we had there in our mid-tier. Tim does not have a single value running back, and yet you don't have one either, do you? So I'm the only one that has any value running backs. So
the only guy I was going to mention is probably the one that you're going to talk about. So I'll let you talk about him. All
right. So I got two guys in my value tier, and one of them is Raheem Mostert. I think he had 15 carries last week, 2 targets going against the Jets. Obviously, the Jets we know are a bad defense. He's 5,000. If he's getting the volume against that defense, I like him at that price point. And then Tyler Algier was a surprising one for me. When I first looked at him, like, oh no, that Bucs defense is really good. But then the more I looked at it, they're 23rd DVOA versus the run. So that Bucs defense, if you're going to beat that Bucs defense, it's running the ball, and we saw that a little bit last week as well. With the Chiefs and CEH basically just running all over them. So I think that Tyler Algier can be a sneaky play at 4.7 because people just think the Bucs defense is really good, which it is, but it's more against the pass so than it is against the run. So I like Algier as well.
Yeah, one thing I will say about Raheem Mostert is that it has become clear through 4 weeks that Chase Edmonds is stone cold dust. I mean, He is like negative EPA every time he runs the ball. So I think last week or last couple of weeks, we've really seen Mostert take over. I think this week it could be like 70-30, man. Chase Edmonds is just done.
He's just done. And the great thing about Mostert, we've seen it. We haven't seen it quite this year yet, but we've seen it in the past that if he gets that little sliver of space, he can go to the house from anywhere because he's got the speed to take it to the house. So if he can get that little bit of sliver against that Jets defense, he'll make a house call and pay up his salary in one play. So
I think there was some hedging that he might not be the same guy after that injury, but he looks like the same dude to me, man.
Yep.
He definitely has way more burst than Chase Edmonds.
Agreed.
The guy I kind of agreed with you was Tyler Algier. And the reasoning behind it is we just lost Pitts for the week. Somebody's got to fill that role. There's not a whole lot of talent on this offense, and somebody's going to have to touch the ball. So that was kind of like if I go down to it, that's my punt guy at running back. So I really like that call.
Yeah, and of course, we know Cordell Patterson's not going to play either. So you're down Pitts and Patterson. So that's definitely there's not a lot of weapons there at all. All right, let's move down into the wide receivers.
And now, wide receivers. Lock it in.
All right, Jared, you got the lock it in on the receivers here. Who are you locking in?
Yeah, it's Cooper Kupp. And it's pretty straightforward. This dude's averaging 13 and a half targets a game, which is unheard of in the NFL. You look at, I watched the game last Monday night, Monday night, and the Stafford throws to Kupp and he throws to Higbee and he throws to nobody else. Like there's so much volume. Like he scored 29.2 DraftKings points and his team didn't score a touchdown. Like that's incredible.
That's
like it's unbelievable how much volume he's getting. Like
they had a stat on the screen at one point where it was like the last 8 plays, and it was literally Kupp, Robinson, Kupp.
He just refuses to throw to anybody else other than Higbee and Kupp. And a lot of us played best ball and season long. A lot of people were really high on Robinson, and this offense was super, looked at it. They just won the Super Bowl, like these guys should be filling in. A lot of people thought A-Rob would fill in that OBJ role. It just ain't happening, So on volume alone, I don't care who's covering them. I know Dallas's defense is really good. I know the Rams' offensive line is really bad. But if you're going to tell me that Cooper Kupp gets 14 targets against the Cowboys defense, there's no way around it. You just have to play this dude.
Yeah, when Stafford drops back, there's 3 scenarios. He's either going to throw it to Kupp, throw it to Higbee, or get sacked. Those are the 3 things that are going to happen: either Kupp, Higbee, or sack. All right, let's stick with that elite tier there, Tim. Give me one of your elite guys.
So I talked about it at the top of the show, right? Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. It's the we don't give a fuck week where they're just going to go all over the Steelers. We saw it a couple times earlier in the season where he just dropped, 30, 40 points. I could think that could totally happen again this week. So I love the Cooper Kupp call. I think he's the play in cash. I think everybody's going to be trying to pay up for him. And when everybody zigs, you guys know I like to zag. And that's going back to Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Run it back this week and win all the money.
Good stuff. So I'll take Tyreek Hill against the Jets at 8,000. Tyreek Hill's already burned the Jets once this year when he didn't go to them. When they tried to offer him a lot of money, he went to the Miami Dolphins instead. So he gets to burn them again this week at 8,000. We haven't heard the full status yet of Jalen Waddle, but he may or may not play. If he's out, Tyreek Hill's going to be even more targeted. He can break the big one at any time, and I think even with a backup quarterback, Tyreek Hill's still going to be money. So at 8,000, I think he's going to be a pretty decent play this week. We still got a few elite guys there. Tim, you want to mention one of your guys?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to a little bit on CeeDee Lamb this week. Now, 7K, but one thing I mentioned before is that the Rams are number 1 in terms of fantasy point over expectation, and he is going to line up in the slot. Jalen Ramsey, we see, is mainly lines up on the outside. So he's not going to see a lot of CeeDee Lamb. I don't expect him to shadow in this game. So I think he's going to get a ton of easy targets over the middle. And what we probably will be the last week we see of Cooper Rush, right? So I talked about it on the show last week. His target percentage with Cooper Rush is insane. It's over 30%. At 7K, he's still not expensive enough. You got to go back to the Lamb well again this week.
I like it. Yeah, and that defense, again, it's kind of like the Bucs. We just assume the Rams defense is really good, but if you look at their past DVOA, they're 25th right now. They got the names to talk about there, but they're not getting the production. So that's a good call. I had a couple more guys in my top tier. I just mentioned them real quick. Justin Jefferson is pretty much always going to be on this list at 8.9 versus Chicago. And I had Debo on there. I know I've mentioned pretty much every 49er at every position except quarterback because I'm not going with Jimmy G. But Debo's usage is just ridiculous. If you look at his game logs, I mean, if he's not running it, he's catching it. So he's getting everything that you need out of that at 7.7. He can put up that elite level tier like a Cup or a JJ. But he also has a great floor as well because he has the rushing ability that he'll get. So
I'll agree. Debo, I think, is one of the best GPP plays on the slate. Like I'm going to endorse your 49ers play here, so you're not on an island. But yeah, with Jimmy G at quarterback, the way he gets used in that offense is insane. And at 7.7, he's just not expensive enough for you to find a way to get him in your GPP. Jared, Mr. 150 over there, filling for Gerson. I'd be interested to see what your percentage ends up on Debo by the time we get to lock.
Well, you guys know, if you know me, I build my 150 after this show, usually listening to you guys. But now I'm on this show, so that's going to throw it off another couple hours.
Yeah. All right. Let's move down into the mid tier, Jared. Who do you have in your mid tier you want to talk about?
Well, hold on a second. Phone just went blank. I want to talk about Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin. Very, very good spot here. Like we said, we all love Brady. Atlanta is terrible against everything. And here's the deal. Like we all worried about Godwin, like coming back from injury. He had 10 targets last week. Like it's not like he just like inserted into the lineup with like a pulled hamstring and ran routes. Like he's out there. He's healthy. He looks good. And we've seen Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and Brady run the whole league for many, many weeks, I just don't see a way to get away from this, especially if you're building a cash game lineup. He is an absolute cash lock for me.
Agreed.
There's just no way around it. Like Atlanta is that bad in the secondary.
Yeah, I like it.
The only guy they have that's any good is AJ Terrell, and he's be expected to be on Mike Evans. Yeah. So and Chris Godwin historically has just torched this team because they've always been bad against the slot. Everything fits together for him to just be an absolute lock this week.
All right, good stuff. Let's move. Stay in the mid tier here, Tim. Who do you got for your other mid tier?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the guy that neither of you guys had, and that's Tyler Lockett. This is a guy I had last week. I'm going to run it back again this week at 5,600. Again, Marshawn Lattimore is expected to be on DK Metcalf. I think Metcalf can still win that matchup, but I also think Geno's going to we talked about again, my thread starter this week on the roundtable group was a chart of completion percentage over expectation. Number one in completion percentage over expectation is Geno Smith. So I titled it, It's Geno's World, and we're just living in it. So I think he's going to go with all of those easy receptions to Tyler Lockett over the middle. I think he easily smashes value at 5,600, and he always has that potential to break one, and then, you got to have him.
Good stuff. My mid-tier guy, I was waiting to hear some news. It looks like he is cleared. He was moved from questionable to healthy, and that's Curtis Samuel versus Tennessee at 5.8. Yeah. He's playing sort of a Deebo Samuel light role. He didn't have any carries last week, but he did have, I think, 4 carries in week 1. He had 3 carries against Philly, so he's getting that floor from the rushing. He's getting targeted more than any receiver on this team right now, and, of course, Jahan Dotson's already been ruled out, so there's even more targets to go around. So Curtis Samuel is going to be one of my top mid-tier plays there at 5.8. And I just think that no one has given him the respect that he's been, because they all think he's going to get hurt or, whatever. They had a, kind of bad taste in their mouth from last year, but he keeps producing and staying under 6K. I can't pass that up at 5.8. So he's one of my favorite mid-tier plays. We still got a bunch of mid-tiers to mention, so we'll go back through again. We'll go to you first, Jared. Almost called you Gerson.
I buy way more than Gerson nowadays, but I like Garrett Wilson. Like I said, I mentioned the Jets a lot. I really kind of put my foot in the stone this week with the Jets and their youth. Here's the deal. You can beat Miami through the air. Miami has one good pass defender, and it's Xavier and Howard. He can only match up on one of the 3 guys, and I'm presuming it's going to be Elijah Moore the most of the time. I don't know if he necessarily shadows a whole lot, but this game's going to have a lot of points in it, I think. If Teddy Bridgewater can keep up with the Jets, I think this game could play into the 30s. I really do. And I think that Garrett Wilson has looked phenomenal. The volume's there. Zach Wilson comes back. Zach Wilson throws him a freaking touchdown. Like, this team is going to be fun to watch in the next couple of years. And it might be a little early, but I'm going to jump on it before everybody else does. So
the narrative last week was that Zach Wilson was back and he liked Elijah Moore more last year. So Garrett Wilson was kind of down, but Garrett Wilson was still the target. So I like that call a lot. I think Garrett Wilson's got some good value there at 5.2. You have one guy left there, Tim, on your mid tier. Go ahead and talk about Olave.
Yeah, I thought this was a guy we were all going to be fighting to talk about. Chris Olave, man. I think this is a no-brainer. I don't think he's a lock, but I think he's definitely some guy I'm going to have a lot of exposure to. Some people were worried, without Jameis Winston throwing the ball deep downfield, was he still going to be able to be viable? And he had 7 targets last week with Andy Dalton, right? They found a way to get this guy the ball. They used him inside the red zone, and he had a 32-yard catch, right? So if Andy Dalton is going to be throwing the ball deep, it's going to be to Chris Olave. I think he's a great play this week. He's right in the same range with Tyler Lockett. I'll probably have exposure to both those guys.
Yeah, I like the Olave call as well. And a reason why I didn't talk about it, because I talked about it in the last couple of weeks about his air yards. And I was one of those guys last week that was being a little cautious with Olave because James Winston was out and, he wasn't get those YOLO balls. But Dalton still found him open. I think Olave just finds a way to get open. Even in college, he was one of the leaders in separation. So I think that you're wide open and Dalton can get you the ball. So I like that one a lot.
One thing I will say about Dalton is he tends to stick to a receiver he really likes, right? Somebody he trusts. And right now it looks like that guy is Chris Olave.
Agreed.
I was just gonna make a quick note on the Saints. They kind of worry me a little bit with Kamara coming back. This is one team that, like, when I watch them play, I feel like they have no identity. Like, they have no idea what they're doing. And Olave gets a lot of we're down by 17, so we got to throw the ball points, which is fine. But I feel like with Kamara coming back, there might be a little bit more run heavy. They have no idea. To me, it's like the Saints and Tennessee Titans have no idea what they're doing on offense every time they touch the ball. I think Olave is still a good play, and I'll have him. I just don't think I'll be at where the field's at because I think he's coming in at near 21%.
Yeah, I agree. And Jared, don't shake your head. For some reason, whenever you do that, you sound like you're a DJ and you're like mixing it up a little bit, scratching your voice. So the last guy I had in the mid tier, I just mentioned him real quick. Christian Kirk versus Houston at 6.6. It's with Trevor Lawrence, like we mentioned, great matchup. He's his preferred target in that offense. So if you're playing Trevor Lawrence, you can get Christian Kirk there for pretty cheap at 6.6. So he's the last mid tier guy we got to talk about. Let's move down.
I do want to give a quick shout out to Damian Porter again in the chat. He had Robert Woods. I almost had Robert Woods on my sheet. Washington bottom 5 in every statistical category against wide receivers. He's clearly their number one. With Treylon Burks out, I think he sees close to 10 targets at 5,200. So I love that play as well. Good
call. All right, let's move down into the value tier. And I'm going to go to you, Jared, with the guy whose name you can't pronounce.
So I have Olave Zaccheaus. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Good job.
I can't. Don't ask me how to spell it because I didn't even spell it right in the form. But yeah, here's the Falcons are down to Tyler Adjo, who's a rookie running back who has never seen a whole lot of volume. They're down to Drake London, who's been playing and it's been all right. And then they have Olave Zaccheaus. Like they just don't have anybody. Like somebody has to. Yeah, you have to remind yourself that NFL teams run 55 to 75 plays a game, depending on how the game goes. Somebody's got to touch the ball, and I don't know who it's going to be this week, but I'll have a sprinkle of a little bit of all of them, just because somebody's got to touch the ball in that offense, and that was really my main reasoning for listing Olave Zaccheaus.
Nice. At 4.1, it's definitely a great value. Tim, I was going to put this guy on my value tier. Yeah. You had him already.
I felt bad. I did, because he was your sit call last week. First of all, before we get to the sit calls, I want to shout out Jeff, who nailed it last week playing George Pickens. Wrote him up, put his whole, nuts on the table that it was George Pickens week, and it ended up being George Pickens week. So I'm going back to George Pickens. I will talk about this when we get to defense. I think that Kenny Pickett is in for trial by fire this week. But the one thing that seems to be is when he was able to be in the pocket and stand upright, he was looking to try and find George Pickens on the field. So he had 5 targets in the time that Kenny Pickens was quarterback against Buffalo. They're going to have to throw. They're going to be behind all game. I think he could see 7, 8 targets at 4,300. That's just way too cheap.
Yeah, I love it.
Big shout out to Jeff this week because George Pickens was mentioned in literally everywhere on Going for Two after this game. There was people talking about him in waiver wire ads. I think I had mentioned him. They were talking about it on the Wednesday show. Like everybody's like, "Oh, hey, Kenny Pickens, let's go!" Like let it ride. And great last week, by the way.
Good stuff. All right, I have 2 guys in my value tier here. One of them is we mentioned earlier. The bad defense of the Rams secondary. So I'm going to go Gallup here at 5,000. I think he played 68% of the snaps last week. He caught a touchdown. So I think he's going to be getting even a larger role this week. I think get a little bit more out of the picture there. So Gallup, I think, is a great play at 5K. And then this play that I'm going to say is more about price than anything else is Rondelle Moore. We all love Greg Dortch, and Rondelle Moore kind of killed the Dortch. But Rondelle Moore did get some good targets last week. He has some amazing athletic ability. If they can get the ball in his hands in space at 4.1, I think he's definitely worth a flyer. Nothing for cash games in that respect because I don't know what he's going to put out there, but I think Moore at 4.1 is definitely a playable option for sure.
Yeah, he was limited though, so definitely keep an eye on that final report on Sunday.
Absolutely. All right, let's get the defense.
Defense.
All right, Tim, give us the defense of the week.
Yeah, so I told you I almost asked if this could be my cash lock of the week, and it's the Dallas defense, right? Like normally I would not pick a team that's projected to lose, but again, going back to my charts, in terms of sack rate versus teams giving up, it's not even close, right? The Dallas Cowboys are projected for multiple sacks in this game. Matthew Stafford is going to be under pressure the whole time, and they're 2,500, right? They're like the 7th cheapest defense on the whole slate. In my opinion, it's a misprice. I don't care if you're playing Cooper Kupp or Tyler Higbee in cash. Go ahead and play the Dallas defense anyway. They're just way too damn cheap.
Yeah, I love that call. I have the Dallas as my top defense as well. Jared, you got anybody different than Dallas?
I got a couple of different guys. Just because I knew you guys were going to talk about them. I do love Dallas. I mentioned them in my article this morning. I got a defense that's so sick. I wrote on a show sheet it might be a sick call, and it's the Detroit Lions. This reminds me of like how you guys said the whole sick call thing started because you play a defense that's this bad. Detroit's terrible. Don't get me wrong, but they're going against a 3rd string quarterback. I don't know if Hoyer's playing or not. It might be 2nd string. Like they're so bad.
No, it's Zappy. It's definitely Zappy.
Definitely Zappy.
Yeah, so you got a 3rd string quarterback. You have the best wide receiver on the team is Jacoby Myers, who is, whatever. He's Jacoby Myers. And they have a pretty good corner in Okudah, who actually got roasted for the first 12 weeks of his career, but has looked pretty good since. Yeah. And then you have 2 decent running backs. Like I like to target my defenses against really, really, really bad offenses. And I think that the Patriots offense is really, really, really that bad. So I think no one's going to play him because they've given up fucking 34, 50 points a week damn near. But I think it's a low-owned defense. Like I said, I play 150 lines, so I kind of like to mention the people that not everybody thinks about.
I like it.
So, hey, before you go on, Jeff, I want to mention something real quick because I almost never recommend paying up for defense. And this week I talked about it on the tight end section that value is hard to find this week. Okay. But if you want to be different or if you want to find a way to get to the top, we talk about it every week. There's 2 ways to get different: tight end and defense. This week, if you can pay up, if you can afford the Buffalo Bills, this could be a potential smash spot. I'm talking 20 plus points for a defense at 4,100. Kenny Pickett is going to get absolutely destroyed. I don't care that Jordan Poyer is out. I don't care that Buffalo has injuries. This is going to be, what do you have, 3 picks in less than a half? This could be a 5-6 pick game with 5 or 6 sacks. I mean, this could just be nasty. If they get a touchdown, we're talking 20 plus points for the defense. So I think you play Dallas in cash, and I think you play Buffalo Bills in tournaments.
Yeah, literally, guys, on the sheet, Tim wrote next to the Bills, Kenny Pickett gonna die.
Kenny Pickett's going to die. No, and I'll admit I stole that from Devin Knotts from the Football Guys, but I thought it was such good analysis because, I mean, this game just seems like one of those like classic, like Bill Belichick games that he used to do back in the day where he'd play a rookie quarterback and just be like, send the house on every play. And I think that's what Buffalo is going to do in this game.
I like it. And the one defense that we hadn't mentioned that I have is also another fairly sick call because they give up a ton of points and they're not very good on defense, but it's the Jets going against Miami and Teddy B, especially if Waddle's out and you know who the receivers there besides Tyreek Hill. So the Jets are a sneaky 2.6. You're getting like, you know, pretty much minimum salary there for the Jets against a backup quarterback. So they're the ones that sort of sneaky different pivot off some of the other guys we talked about. All right, time for our stacks.
Goingfor2.com's weekly stack report.
All right, Yeti, let's go to you first. Give me your stack of the week.
Oh, I was hoping to be last because mine's so sick, but I'm going Zach Wilson, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, running it back with Tyreek Hill. I believe this game total is only at 43 last time I looked, but it's pretty low. Here's the thing. Miami has the receivers to keep
it's
up.
45 and a half.
Okay, so it's gone up a little bit. But Teddy Bridgewater, man, as a Minnesota Vikings fan, I've watched him a few years. Like, he really doesn't have that down the field throw. Like, he really doesn't. Like, I've watched him multiple times, and I'm not a Teddy Bridgewater hater, but, like, I just feel like this game, in a whole, I feel like the Jets are going to be in front almost the whole game. And if they're not, they're going to be flinging it all over the yard. And Miami struggles badly against that outside of whoever Xavier Howard's guarding because he's pretty damn good. But, yeah, I just feel like this game has this weird vibe to me. And I said this, I think it was week 2 when Miami played Baltimore. Me and Gerson both kind of got on that game late in the afternoon. I'm like, these offenses are pretty good. Like, they're kind of underrated. I know I'm not a big Bridgewater guy, but he's got the weapons to do it, especially if Waddle plays. I really, really like I like that call. I really like that sack for a game.
Yeah. And Howard may not play. Like, that could be huge if Howard doesn't end up playing.
Yeah, good call. All right, Tim, what you got for your stack?
Yeah, this one's easy. We talked about this at the top. It's Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, George Pickens. And if you want to make it a really, really low-owned stack, you can use the guy that Jared is going to have for his sick call. So we'll talk about that in a second.
Good stuff. All right, so looking at the stacks, there was one stack that I was trying to put together with Tom Brady and Chris Godwin. I didn't really like the comebacks. I mean, I guess you could do Drake London. He'd be the one I think I would bring back on that side. I thought that would be a little bit chalky, so I want to go a little bit less chalky. And I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, and then bring it back with Brandon Cooks. I think it'll be the quarterback at least will be higher owned. I don't know about Christian Kirk and Brandon Cooks. They might be a little bit lower owned. You can get that as a pretty decent low ownership stack. So that's my stack of the week. Pretty cheap too. So you can pay up for some of the guys we mentioned tonight, the higher price guys. You can get into your lineup with that stack. So Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, Brandon Cooks is my stack. All right, let's get to the sick calls.
And now, the sick call of the week.
All right, so streak did end last week. He had a streak of 3 straight, week 1, 2, and 3, that he hit on all of his sick calls. His streak ended. My streak ended as well. I missed on all 3 of my first sick calls, so I finally hit last week with George Pickens. So we're going to go to you here, Jared, first, because you're the guest on the show. So and you took literally me and Tim both said you took our sick call, so you get to take the sick call. You were the first one to get the name down there.
It's Khalil Shakir. I call him Shakira. If I got to be Gerson, I throw a joke in there. So Khalil Shakira, shake it for me, baby. That guy at 3,200.
The hips don't lie.
Hips don't lie, baby. No, but Kumero's out. Crowder's out. Now, neither one of these guys have been super involved in their offense, except for that game. I think it was 2 weeks ago where Brian, shout out Brian in the chat, was like, oh yeah, Kumaro was running warm-ups as wide receiver too, and then he had a pretty good game on a showdown slate. So
yeah,
always good to be in the chat and getting some of that information for everyone that's not watching the little stuff. But yeah, he had 2 targets last week, not a ton. Caught them both. You know, they can't just throw to Gabe Davis, and he's questionable, I believe, as well. And so if Gabe Davis, I mean, we're moving up to like, you know, not even sick call stock. You know,
I think
he can be a play.
He's questionable as well, isn't he?
I think he's out already. He might. Yeah, I think
Gabe Davis was a full participant. Gabe Davis is going to play. He finally got full practice in this week, so he's going to play. But it could be Diggs, Davis, and Shakira.
Cody, I cannot spell his name. I have to Google it every single time. I just saw you in the chat. But hey, no, I just wanted to say, you know, like when I come out here and I say I love the Jets, do I love the Jets? Yes, I love the Jets this week, but I'm only going to have, 3 to 5%. I'm not going crazy with the Jets, but I'll definitely have some. But when you're the guest host, you got to make a bold statement, and that's my team this week.
I like it.
There you go.
I like it. So if you're wrong, you can't come back on, but if you're right, we'll get you back on next week.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Tim, what you got?
I'm going to go next. Yeah, so last week I talked about earlier that Chris Olave with Andy Dalton still played well. But I think the biggest beneficiary of Michael Thomas being out was actually Marquez Callaway. This was a guy that was very popular last year in drafts. He was kind of everybody's, draft darling, if you will. And then, of course, he didn't pay off. But I think at 3,300, he's in that kind of punt range. He got 6 targets last week. And then this week he gets to play against Seattle, which makes everybody look good. He made Khalif Raymond look kind of good. He made Josh Reynolds look pretty good. I think they can make Marquez Callaway look pretty good. So I'm looking to get my streak back this week. I think Marquez Callaway gets me there as my sit call.
Good stuff. All right, like I mentioned earlier in the show, I originally had Cade Otton kind of pegged as my sit call until I realized he was going to be the second highest owned tight end on the slate. So I stuck with the tight ends, and I'm going with Mr. O.J. Howard, who was a really popular, play or pickup waiver wire after week 1. He caught 2 touchdowns. He only had, I think, three snaps and 2 touchdowns, and then did nothing for the next few weeks. But last week he played 75% of the snaps. He is in the league right now, 4th in targets per route run for all tight ends at 23%. He also led all tight ends last week in routes run and targets for the Texans. So he's getting the routes, he's getting the targets. I think who's the tight end that's injured? There's someone that was injured.
Brevin Jordan. That's what I was going to say. The Brevin Jordan injury really opened the door for O.J. Howard. I mean, this is a guy that got cut in the offseason, ended up on the Texans, showed out the first week, and now this dude's going to play. So,
yep. And he's an athletic freak. So you can throw him. I didn't want to give him out on my stack, but you can throw him in that stack as well. With T-Law, Kirk, and Cooks, you can put OJH in there to sort of save some of your salary. All right, fellas, great show. We wrapped it up here. Let's go around the room and give us your Twitter handle and plug anything you want to plug. We'll go to you first, Jared.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at the Yeti Express. I write the Cash Game article here, going for 2. You can find that every Friday morning around 11 to 12, depending on when it goes out. You can find me in pretty much every Facebook group. I'm super active on Facebook. I have my name posted there. A lot of very good free information on a lot of these Facebook groups. We have the DraftKings group. We have the DFS Roundtable. A lot of good threads, a lot of good graphs to look at. If you're a newer player, get in these groups and teach yourself to learn. Not everybody comes out and they're like, hey, I'm going to be a DFS player. No, the people that do that say, hey, I'm going to play my season-long line and see how they do. Learn how to be good, Yeah. It takes some time, but, take the time to be good. And get in these because we'll help you. Not saying that we're world beaters or anything, but we'll give you the information you need to know.
Good stuff. Yeah. And just to quickly plug, Jared's not used to it, but plug the Sunday show. So Gerson will not be on the Sunday show this week, but Jared is filling in for Gerson there as well. Yeah. So all these, questionable guys that we're not quite sure of, we're going to be looking at on Sunday mornings. Jared, you want to say something? You raised your hand.
Yeah. I'm on the Sunday show ? Because Gerson wouldn't know if he's on the Sunday show if he was here. He would have no idea. Don't ask me who's on it.
Yeah. So great call. All right.
Yeah,
So
a lot of questionable guys this week, so definitely tune into the Sunday show. I want to give it real quick. I can't believe we got through the whole show without talking about any Philadelphia Eagles since the top. So I want a last second shout out to Hurts, AJ Brown, and Devontae Smith because I like that stack a lot this week. But yeah, we talked about it on Twitter at Keto DFS, but most importantly, get in the DFS Roundtable Facebook group, get in my weekly NFL thread. A lot of good info there, a lot of good conversation, so you'll want to join in.
Good stuff. As always, guys, you can follow me on Twitter at JeffLambert77, as Jared and Tim both mentioned. DraftKings group on Facebook is the group I run. The DFS Roundtable is the group that Tim and Gerson and I partially run as well. We also have a Discord channel. If you go to goingfor2.com, in the bottom right corner, you'll see the little Discord logo. You click on that, you can join our Discord as well. We got DFS season-long prop bets. We got everything in there, a community of about 800, I think, now. So if you want to get into the Discord, go ahead and do that. Then that's pretty much it for the week, guys. For Tim, thanks, Jared, for coming on. We appreciate you filling in last minute for Gerson. And good luck this weekend, and we will see y'all next week. Tim, you're on mute.
Go Pack, go, baby. We in London.